So I want to speak about a concept called the curse of knowledge, which is the phenomena that when someone gets to understand something and realizes some idea, it then becomes like it's type of cognitive bias that it becomes difficult to understand why everyone else doesn't understand it because it seems so obvious. And that's what's happened to me when I was presented with the arguments against life and against reproduction. It all just seemed so blindingly obvious, it became difficult to understand why everyone couldn't get it. So I just wanted you to speak to that.
Yeah, I liken it to the analogy I use is the Planet of the Apes film. I'm sure a lot of people have watched that film. If they haven't, I recommend it. The old one, not the new versions, the 1968, I think, version, the original with Charlton Heston. The waking up to antinatalism is akin to the astronauts landing on a new planet. It's almost as if it's a complete radical paradigm shift when you wake up to this philosophy. And obviously everyone else is obviously in the original state, like the primates in the film. So it's a complete separation between yourselves and the mass of the populace of the earth. So I liken it to the film Planet of the Apes. It's a great analogy. So obviously your family members, if they're most probably going to be left behind. It's just like a massive step up in evolution, really. That's what it is, the realization of this concept. So it's like a huge, shift in consciousness. So it's very radical. And the mass of the population are going to be obviously in the same state they were before. They're going to be natalists, basically. So they're going to continue to promote reproduction, etc. So it leaves you in a state that the astronauts were in the film, where you're continually battling with the mass of the populace of the Earth, and it can really weigh you down. One of the commenters mentioned that we were mentioning fun, and he had a problem with that, and I understand his problem with it is it sounds frivolous, but he can suggest a way to continue post waking up that doesn't lead to suicide. See, this is why we mention fun. It's you have to have a kind of a gallows humor to carry on, because if you realize early in life you've got decades in front of you to manage here on Earth, so it's very difficult. Relationships are strained, as I said. You may lose family members or whatever. Danny and I both had children. We both have children, so it's even more tough because obviously you have to break the news to them, and they feel that we've kind of we're looking down upon them, or we wish we never had them, and we really don't. We really do wish we never had them, but it's not for the reason that they may think. It's because we obviously are aware of the suffering caused, and we've brought them into existence, and there's going to be terrible suffering as a result of them being here. So that's why we regret having our children. So it's very difficult all round, really, but more poignant when you've had children and you wake up post having the children.
Yeah, and that kind of leads me to just a recent incident. I mean, it's like occasionally nowadays, I've been into this philosophy for 10 years now, and I don't bother much with talking about it to my friends and family, because it's just like speaking to a brick wall. It's barking up the wrong tree, and it just winds them up, and so I really hardly speak about it. But there was recently in one of the WhatsApp groups I'm in with some friends, there was a birthday, and I made a comment about I wonder what the birth was like, because no one ever thinks about birth from the child's point of view. Everyone thinks about birth from the parent's point of view. So I kind of brought up, wonder what the birth was like from the child's point of view, or when you came out, when we all came out. Can you imagine what the child goes through? The child's been in the womb for 9 months, and then all of a sudden it feels some pressure on its head, and then there's probably some screaming from its mother, it doesn't know what's going on, and more pressure, right, immense pressure on its head. And unlike the mother, who knows that the end of the process is she's going to have this baby, yeah, to look after, that she's wanted, the child doesn't know that this is going to ever stop. And this is something that happens to a child in the first part of its life, the first year, 2, 3, I don't know how many years it is. Every time the mother goes out of the room, the child doesn't know whether the mother's going to come back. Hence, perhaps that's one of the reasons why the child cries so much. And maybe also the fact that the child cries when it comes out could be as a result of going through the trauma of having to being born. So I made some kind of frivolous comment about that on this group, and someone privately contacted me and said, please can you be a bit more sensitive, because there's someone on the group who's trying to have children and you know, got married several years ago, and he's trying desperately to have children and can't have a child so far, hasn't managed to be successful. So should I you know, can you please be a bit more sensitive? And at first I kind of took a little bit of a hit on that, and I meditated for a little, and then I realized that that there's some, I mean, it's unconscious, but I realized the crazy sort of double standard that's going on. I mean, it's not a conscious double standard, and the person that asked me to be sensitive is a decent person, although she herself has many children. It was a decent person, and she was trying to protect this other young woman who's very distressed about the fact that she isn't being successful at creating children. But this other woman, I happen to know that her parents they both have, well, one of her parents has got serious mental health conditions and goes in and out of suicidal depression, and the other one is kind of like autistic, or some on the autistic scale, on the autistic spectrum. And this person's in-laws also, one of them is really mad. I don't know the exact details, but you know, and so to me, what this woman and what all natalists are is, you know, having children. I thought to myself of a T-shirt, right, which is something like, having children is highly insensitive, right? And that's why and antinatalism is highly sensitive, because you and I and many of the antinatalists I know are very sensitive people, and it's this sensitivity that we are sensitive to all the suffering and pain in the world, and all the suffering and pain that each person experiences, and in particular the suffering, the pain of the outliers, the people who pay the price, the people who've got serious conditions, or have had terrible accidents, or whatever it is, or have serious mental health conditions. And so, you know, although she doesn't know it, this woman who kind of privately messaged me, yeah, she is completely, I mean, it's her DNA that does it, but her DNA enables her to be completely insensitive to the immense problems that the child, and not just a child, but that this new human that is want to be created is going to experience. And in this particular case of this woman who's finding it difficult to get pregnant, she's going to be handing on some very questionable genes to the next generation, and is completely insensitive to that. She doesn't even, you know, when it was pointed out to her by someone I know, she kind of said, "Oh, it's okay. I've got friends that are really, really dysfunctional, and but their child is actually quite nice." That was the way she kind of got around it. And this is quite common, that if you challenge natalists, the DNA programming is so strong that it will either go in one ear or out the other, or they'll find some feeble excuse for being so highly insensitive.
Yeah, I agree. My view is that it's a radical form of natalism, is a radical form of narcissism. If you really examine it, there is no consideration of the created child at all during the process of creation. The parent just wants to have a child, see, like a possession. So they have no consideration of the child before birth itself. There's no consideration at all. So I consider it to be natalism, to be a radical form of narcissism. Sorry. And there's no way of kind of standing it down or cutting through, because obviously DNA is at the root. It's the driver of the mindset. So you just can't, it's impossible to shut it off. What usually happens is, what can happen, I think, with natalists, radical natalists, is that the trouble they experience in life, or the child experiences, may break through, and they may start to consider, they may start to review and consider that they might have made a mistake. But the troubles would have to be really heavy, I think, for them to wake up, so to speak. So that's my view on it. I think it is definitely a mental illness driven by DNA. The higher cognitive functions they're not strong enough to even consider that they may be making a mistake, or that natalism might be wrong. It takes an immense amount of frontal lobe kind of power in order to stand down DNA, because it's the driver of life itself. So I call it counterintelligence, but the central intelligence being DNA itself. The diabolical nano-alien, I call it, DNA. It is like an alien force when you compare it to human. The power of a human being is totally against the human, ethical position. So there's no ethics involved at all. It's just purely a selfish choice to have a child, and there's no frontal lobe power to kind of cut through it and see through it. That's what you need in order to become an antinatalist. You need high sensitivity and, powerful frontal lobe development, so you can, raise your consciousness to a meta position and actually analyze what you're actually doing. That's what metacognition is. It's the looking at your own behavior and criticizing it where necessary, and then modifying it so that you can change your course. That's what defines us as human beings, as opposed to animals. And that's why, hence the analogy to the Planet of the Apes film. The majority of so-called humans on the planet are not really such. They're actually primates, Homo erectus, not Homo sapiens, as I've mentioned in a previous podcast we were talking about.